Раз. Номер. Раз, два, три. Раз, два.
English channel test. Interpreter speaking to English channel. Good day, dear colleagues, dear friends, dear representatives from diplomatic organizations. My name is Azim Aliyev. I will be moderator of today's event, and I will start from the fact that today, 10th of December, is the day of human rights, and unfortunately, we have both good and bad traditions. Unfortunately, we have a bad tradition that on 10th of December to get together in these premises of Izolyatsia and speak about violation of human rights at occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk oblast and in Crimea. And we are talking about unlawful prisons, illegal prisons. One of such prisons, unfortunately, the most prominent example of such examples of prisons is prison Izolyatsia in Donetsk. A year ago, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukrainian Institute and Fund Izolyatsia launched a joint project which is called Izolyatsia Must Speak. And today we drawing what we achieved to this for the last years and about what we will work next year related to the topic of Izolyatsia. And today's event will be consisting of number of sections. The first section is where I will invite to speak people who are directly involved in doing everything that tomorrow such events could be conducted in freed Ukrainian Donetsk, Lugansk or Crimea. And I want to invite my colleague Alexandra Matvichuk, head of the board of the Center of Human Liberties. Good day, colleagues. I will agree with Alim Aliyev that for a number of years we are gathering here in order to speak about the crimes, war crimes that happened in secret prison Izolyatsia that is located at the territory of military base, Russian military base in Donetsk. And we cannot tell that this is a secret prison because we all know the address of this facility. Everyone knows what's happening there, and information about the raping, sexual violence, and and executions happen there. They are mentioned in every report of the High Commissioner of UN on Human Rights. And I want to start about the topic that when we're talking about kidnappings and tortures, when we talk about the problem of non-punishment for those crimes, where the victims are mostly civilians, men and women, we face problems that cannot be influenced by the Ukrainian state, but problems that and certain problems that are also within the competence of Ukraine. And one of such problems is inefficiency of Ukrainian legislation. In the criminal code, we still don't have articles for the crimes against humanity, and certain articles are written in such a way that we cannot practically use them. That's why when recently the main torturer of the Izolyatsia prison was arrested, he was convicted of 4 crimes, and none of them is related to the tortures. And in Finally, in May this year, the parliament had adopted legislation 2689, which is called a law on military criminals, and this law defines the responsibility for the laws against humanity, and it gives opportunity to national authorities to to convict people who commit these crimes at the occupied territories, including the prison Izolyatsia. Unfortunately, here we have a strange situation. This draft law is for 6 months, is not yet signed by the president of Ukraine, and for 6 months president is not signing it. This situation is very strange because president of Ukraine is talking at everywhere, and at the opening of the Crimea platform, and at meetings in Brussels, and during meetings abroad, he says that Ukraine will prosecute for the violation of human rights at occupied territories, and we are of the impression that president is not aware that he is now one of the obstacles for prosecution of war criminals, because for 6 months he haven't yet signed this draft law that will enable to solve those issues in legal way. We see this is about the justice to people who survived those prisons. It's not about but past. It's about future, because people who are committing crimes at occupied territories, they're convicted that they will not be prosecuted. They think they will be subject to amnesties. They will be exchanged. That they think that the terms of validity of those crimes will expire. But when president will sign this this law, it will be direct signal to people who are now torturing and executing people in Izolyatsia that individual criminal responsibility will find them, and for everything they committed, they will be prosecuted. And that's why the Center of Civil Liberties and Cultural Fund Izolyatsia is asking President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, and we prepared such pen which is said, Mr. President, please sign law 2689. You can take number of these pens, and maybe with one of these pens it could be very symbolic that Volodymyr Zelensky will fulfill his promise, and he will sign the law that will open a way for justice for people who suffered from the war with Russian Federation. The second thing that I wanted to speak, that yesterday we had a meeting of trilateral contact group, and Ukraine submitted a list of more than 60 people and requested their release or before the new year as the sign of humanity. And unfortunately this didn't happen. But for me it's important that we don't speak about this list as about number of people, but I want to understand these people in person. Now, person number one is Ludmila Kuseyn, and yesterday she received the National Human Rights Award for protecting human rights in Ukraine. She's an engineer. She's living in Novoazovsk at occupied territories. When Novoazovsk was occupied, she started to protect rights of children in the in the orphanage at the occupied territories, and for her active human rights protection activities, she was thrown to the Izolyatsia prison. She's one politically prosecuted person in the cell for certain women. Another story is of Irina Shiba. She is the daughter of a teacher who was best teacher of a year in Kharkiv Oblast. Her mother 6 months ago went to occupied Gorlivka to visit her grandmother. She was arrested. She was convicted of spying, and for 6 months Irina is fighting to release her mother. And the last story that I want to announce publicly, because Cultural Fund Izolyatsia and because we are now starting the activity of immediate help, is the story of Natalie Stacenka. She's a doctor. She was arrested for uh, for mailing with Stanislav Aseyev, a Donetsk journalist. She was supposed to receive an urgent surgery before she was thrown to prison. Now she is in Donetsk season number 5, and her health condition, degraded drastically because she didn't receive surgical intervention in time. She's partially paralyzed. She always feeling pain. Painkillers doesn't help. She doesn't have access uh, mm, to drugs, and after 3 years in prisons, she had a visit of doctor, and he said that she needs immediate surgery, but unfortunately she was not released for surgery because uh, pre, uh, on the pretext that it's of COVID measures. Unfortunately, now she is already a disabled person, but if she will not receive a surgery, she will definitely die. And Christmas is coming, and Christmas it's time for miracles, and miracles should happen, and we want to start the uh, we want to uh, we ask everyone who is present here, all people of goodwill, to maximally publicize our request to the Russian Federation, who are de facto ruling in Donetsk, to show signs of humanity and release Ludmila Stacenka for immediate surgery. We will be very thankful if you can contribute to this uh, to this activity, because Ludmila Stacenka, she should live. Thank you, Alexandra. And now I would like to invite Petro Beshta. He's a director of political department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for an honor to participate in this event, because Day of Human Rights, it's the day when the whole world is commemorating and the fight for the human rights. And this topic is very closely known to Ukraine, because during Soviet time a lot of people were politically repressed, and there were organizations, Ukrainian Helsinki Group, who were fighting for their rights. And when Ukraine became the object of Ukrainian aggression, we faced a lot of violations of human rights, and in a newly different way. We're talking about sufferings of common people, not only during the warfare, but the suffering of teachers, doctors, journalists, common people, and how tortures are used in order to humiliate them, to force them to leave the grounds of their identity. Prison Izolyatsia, it's an example of most brutal way of violation of human rights, and together with other tools that we are using to fight those facts, the one of the most important is freedom of speech, dissemination of information. The more we will speak about these war crimes, the more we will be heard by the international organizations, prominent global figures that will help to save lives. And for many times it was confirmed both at the territory of Donbass and Crimea, because people, when they were kidnapped, that were tortured, the international attention to such facts saved their lives, at least saved them from tortures. Not always such pressure helped to release these people, but at least tortures were not applied to them. And a year ago, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as all of us, and all state authorities, all mass media, and all human rights activists, we try to unite in synergy to save every life. And we were starting this project in order to raise awareness about these facts to maximum number of international organizations, and to use all available international tools to stop those tortures. And there are many more such prisons that are remaining unknown at the territory of occupied Donbass, of the territory of occupied Crimea. Every day people are being detained, tortured, and of course we all have to do all our best to stop such practices. I would like to thank our partners, first of all to the Embassy of Canada and other embassies who help us in these activities. We managed to do a lot abroad in the capitals of many countries and in headquarters of international organizations. The book of Stanislav Aseyev had been translated to many languages. Now he's presenting his French translation of this book in France. And I would like to thank Ukrainian Institute and the charity fund Izolyatsia for our joint activities. It's very important that now we are moving to the next level. We're launching multimedia project that will enable us in more complete way to deliver this information to everyone who is worried about the human rights. We want to stop suffering of people at occupied territories, and we want to stop Russian aggression because it brings sufferings and tortures to people, everywhere where the Russian is showing the aggression. We want and everyone who was related to those crimes, war crimes, should be punished and should bear responsibility for his actions. Thank you. Thank you, Petro. And now I would like to invite, and I think this will be an answer to the question what Office of the General Prosecutor is doing in relation to presence of such illegal prisons in occupied territories. Mr. Yuri Rud, he is the head of Department on Criminal Proceedings against crimes committed at armed conflict areas. Thank you for everyone present, and briefly about the activities that we are conducting on investigation of war crimes at the east of Ukraine. These crimes related to the crimes against Ukrainian military and Ukrainian civilians. They are one of the most massive and together with undeliberate artillery shellings. We are now investigating more than 1,000 crimes related to kidnapping, torturing, and of people at the occupied territories. Now we already established approximately 200 places of illegal detention of people at the occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk oblast, where uh, Ukrainian citizens were detained, and until now they still continue to be detained. According to the data of pre-trial investigation, more than 3,500 people were tortured and suffered inhuman conditions in such uh, places of imprisonments. We already sent to court convictions against 140 people, thanks to the work of human rights activists. We established a large number of people who were involved in conducting illegal imprisonments, and now we have court decisions about 7 people. It's a small number of court decisions, but this is related to the inefficiency of our procedures during the um, court trials, because majority of people who were established as those who committed such crimes, they can be only prosecuted according to the mechanism of indirect presence of and when in majority of cases we see that courts they decline the possibility of conducting special procedure against such people, and for some reason the prosecutor's office cannot object or to this court decision. And in order to remove this discrepancy, the Office of General Prosecutors prepared relevant changes to the procedure of pretrial and court investigation, and this draft of this legislation is sent to the Ministry of Justice, who should be the first initiator of changes to the criminal code of Ukraine on an improvement the procedure of criminal proceedings. And we hope that in the nearest future, this in the form of draft law, it will be forwarded to the Parliament of Ukraine. With regards to prisons, yes, Izolyatsia is the most known illegal prison, which, thanks to the active, proactive position of human rights activists and people and victims who were in this prison, but unfortunately, it is not the worst place where tortures were applied to victims. We know the dungeons of Gorlivka, where Besler and his accomplices committed crimes. 2 months ago, we sent to the court the final version of the case, according to the fact of tortures and killings of Ukrainian citizens, and we continue working on such and similar cases, and we are sure that sooner or later all war criminals will be prosecuted according to Ukrainian law. Thank you very much. I want to add that all of you who are present here will have opportunity to ask their questions after all our speakers will have a chance to talk. And now I want to invite for his speech Oksana Sarzevska Kravchenko. She's a director of International Charity Fund Izolyatsia. And Miss Oksana, please present to us the website, which is the result of work of a large team of lot of Ukrainian institutions. Let's swap the mics. Thank you. I'm trying to find the place in order not to block this screen. My name is Oksana Sarzevska Kravchenko. I'm director of the fund Izolyatsia. I'm very thankful, grateful to our friends and partners, to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to our friends from embassy who for a number of years supporting us on the issues that are very painful for us. Izolyatsia, it's a part of the history of the Izolyatsia Fund. Unfortunately, it happened like that, and we cannot change it. But what we can change, we will not remain silent. And this is what we are talking about when Izolyatsia must speak. It's a voice of all those prisons, illegal places of detention of our citizens. And because when we say Izolyatsia must speak, we not only speak about this particular prison, it's an advocacy movement for all those places of detention of Ukrainian citizens who deserve our protection and support of our state. A year ago, we started to talk about at the high level together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about the fact that this activity should be spoken more widely. More people should know about this prison. Yes, a lot of people know what had been happening there. Families of victims can tell us a lot of details, gruesome details. Some people heard about this prison, but they don't know the severity of those details. We constantly receive additional questions. People ask for some evidences, and this topic is really important to foreign citizens, and they want to support us, and in order for us, with the support of international community, to make these illegal prisons to be closed. What we were able to do with the help of our team and our partners, we collected facts and evidences about the Izolyatsia, about our history, because it used to be initially a factory. It's a history how a factory became a cultural organization, and then cultural organization who was a voice of freedom was turned into place of non-freedom. It's the maximum maximum fact of turning a place of freedom into something horrible and terrible. And in very concise text, fact-related text, we presenting the history of that Izolyatsia facility. You will see how factory changed into a cultural facility, what type of international activities we conducted there, what human rights related events had been conducted there, and then how gradually and escalated into making that facility a prison, a legal prison. I hope very much that all the steps that we are doing, they will be continued and supported further. What had been done already that I want, and we have a lot of things to present to the global community. We collected a lot of evidences, and maybe a year ago we spoke about we need the law on war criminals. During this year it was approved by Parliament, but it's still not yet signed. Yes, this is what Ms. Alexandra said. We must in our country to make this small step to support our citizens just by signing this law, but at the international level we should more broadly talk about illegal places of detention of our citizens, and we should not forget about it. And all this is about Izolyatsia must speak. This is when we have to remain not silent. Thank you very much, and all of you will be can reach this web page, and you will be able to see how this transformation of Izolyatsia factory happened, which is now unfortunately is an example of prison that could be hardly imagined in any fantasy of person. I want to invite one of the leaders of the Izolyatsia Fund, Mr. Mikhailand, and he will tell us about certain activities that are conducted in these premises nowadays. Thank you very much for coming here. This is a very important event for us, and the fact that for almost a year, but actually even earlier, we started to work on and organizing events and lobbying the closure of the illegal prison Izolyatsia. And I'm thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the colleagues from Ukrainian Institute who are supporting us and that help us to make those projects who raise awareness about that illegal prison. But we also continue to work both in Ukraine and abroad. In Ukraine, we support the decentralization movement, and we more now work in smaller cities of Ukraine, less in Ukraine, in Kyiv, and our focus city is Soledar city. And in this room you see an exhibition, and after our event will finish, we will see the result of residencies of for artists to Soledar. They came to Soledar, they did their research, spoke to people, learned about Donbass, about topics related to Donbass, interesting things that can be found there. And totally we had residencies of 22 artists there, but the main part of the exhibition still is still in Soledar. But Soledar is actually a very interesting city. It's very close to the war line, and only in 20 kilometers from Soledar are occupied territories. And in this way we want to show that what is the difference between independent free Ukraine from the occupied territories of Ukraine, where no independent open culture is possible. That's why I invite you to look at this exhibition. And thanks to our colleagues from USAID, we have a catering service in the room at the site. But before we'll proceed at looking at the exhibition, I suggest to everyone to look at the trailer of the documentary that was prepared by the international team. I was director Irina Rebenka and operator Hovhannes Martirosyan, and pre-premiere presentation of this documentary all had been
То, что происходило в стенах изоляции, которую называли Донецким Дахау, выходит за рамки здравого смысла даже там, где, казалось бы, кроме жестокости не приходится ждать ничего. Проведя уже многие месяцы на свободе, я все еще спрашиваю себя, а было ли это? Могло ли такое случиться со мной? Все эти люди, электричество, пытки и скотч, коллективные песни, которыми глушат крики тех, кому идут провода.
В изоляции людей фактически учат бояться. Это очень важно, потому что, понятное дело, это не проговаривается публично, сознательно, да, но все, что они делают, это направлено на то, чтобы у человека сформировать рефлекс страха. И страх — это основная категория сознания, которым я жил, на протяжении, наверное, полугода точно. Да. Это просто было такое оцепенение психологическое, как, в общем-то, в книге я пишу, что мы могли только есть и бояться.
Когда вас кладут на стол и плотно обматывают скотчем, вы можете кричать что угодно. Это не изменит вообще ничего. Ни мольбы о семье, ни взывания к Богу, ни ваш пол, ни ваш возраст, ни сама ваша боль, ужас и крик не изменят вообще ничего. От боли суставы рвутся буквально наружу. Человек обливается потом, сверху для эффекта поливают водой. Неизбежность. Не нужно кричать и просить. Они все равно это сделают. Они все равно вас будут пытать.
Luminous Way, and this is the name of the street where this facility of Izolyatsia was. That was the address of Izolyatsia facility in Donetsk. I want to open Q&A session. Your questions, your comments, please raise your hand. Good day. My name is Andrei Kochmuradov. I'm one of those who stayed in Izolyatsia for 10 months. My questions into the representative of the General Prosecutor's Office. You reported about number of people who were found guilty in those cases. I'm a victim in one of the cases, and from the total amount of people we were able to identify, we had like only 10 had been including into the court case. But the judges, the investigators, the advocates were from that who imprisoned me. They were not included into my case of loss. And like one of the so-called advocates who was still working from the side of the prosecutor of the occupied prosecutor, a member of the advocacy bar in Ukraine. And this is, can you comment the situation with the Evgeny Brajnikov? Maybe you know this episode. How it happened that one of those people who were convicted in conducting tortures at the territory of Izolyatsia, he was able to leave Ukraine, and he's now applying for political asylum in France. Thank you for questions. With regards to the criminal case against people who illegally detain citizens of Ukraine in Izolyatsia and conducting tortures against them, we have 16 people who were listed as criminals there, to which related to 8 of them, the case is already sent to court, but the pre-trial investigation still continues. Yes, we identified about 50 people, but in order for us to have grounds to open criminal cases against them, we have to we have documented a proof of that person. Yes, unfortunately, passport forms 3 of many people remained at occupied territories, and personal cases of many of employees of the law enforcement authorities who joined the terrorist organizations, they remained at the occupied territories. And in order to identify people who were related to these crimes, we involve operational units of the State Security Service and units of National Police. One of the judges is already convicted for violating the right for just for rule of justice. And yes, we have very few cases in court, but we don't stop in our activities. With regard to Mr. Brajnikov, we sent this case to court in April of this year. Unfortunately, the court trial haven't started yet. And only in autumn was defined a court that will be conducting this trial. And because during this time the term of procedural time of procedural detention against that person, he used this opportunity to leave the country. But the fact that he left abroad will not allow him to defy from the from him being guilty. Very soon we will announce him into as a wanted person, and we will send request for extradition to the country where he is now staying. So, and he will be extradited to Ukraine. I will be glad to answer additional questions now or later. Do we have any other comments? If no other comments, I would like to thank all of you, to the representatives of diplomatic organizations, for your effort in informing your countries in order for the fact that such prison as Izolyatsia, and in order for our temporary occupied territories were deoccupied as soon as possible. And thank you, and I invite you for the excursion around the exhibition and to